when you're building your own business and your own practice, your firm, whatever you call it, at the end of the day, even though you look to other people for advice, you will sometimes disagree with them and have to kind of plot your own course. And for me, in the very beginning of my practice, that was a very big aha moment.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is an award-winning accountant and business advisor who works with marketing agencies, consultants, and freelancers. Michael Eckstein, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you and looking forward to this conversation. And I would like to start off with helping our listener understand a little bit more about you and your career journey leading up to this point.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I have the typical journey. Went to college, got an accounting degree, came out, did tax prep for a while, right? And at a certain point, like everyone, I kind of figured, let me go out on my own, start picking up my own clients. And at first, I did mainly tax prep. And as time has gone on, I've shifted more towards the consulting and accounting for marketing agencies side of things.
Very cool. Very cool. So what was the initial point that you decided to do this on your own?
For me, it's a little bit, I guess, of a unusual story where I was working for my dad at the time, right? And his accounting practice had hit critical mass, and he was just like, I'm not interested in taking more clients. And he was like, if you want to take more clients, take them on your own, but I don't want to be involved. And I was like, all right, that's fair. And honestly, like back then, it's just started as a little bit of an experiment, and it kind of grew and grew. And here I am on this podcast.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And so along the way, in starting your own business, were there any obstacles? Did it just sort of flow?
In a way, it flowed. I mean, it's the same obstacle everyone kind of faces, the you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. And even though I have the accounting degree, they don't really teach you about running your own business. Like, yeah, you can read financials, but there's all sorts of these kind of baby steps and things that you have to learn along the way. So for me, it was, I'm going to say, the typical obstacles. I don't have any crazy like challenge I had to overcome. You know what I mean?
That's good. That's good. And was there, you're going through, you're making the typical mistakes. Was there any at any point that you felt, like an aha moment for you where it kind of shifted either in speed or size or just really getting clear?
Yeah. So in retrospect, I see the aha moments and like the mentality shifts, but in the moment, it totally did not feel like I was having aha moments. It felt like I was just kind of churning along and struggling along. But in retrospect, the big moments were that when you're building your own business and your own practice, your firm, whatever you call it, at the end of the day, even though you look to other people for advice, you will sometimes disagree with them and have to kind of plot your own course. And for me, in the very beginning of my practice, that was a very big aha moment because I wanted to do everything the same way everyone else had built their great practices. But at the end of the day, we all have different clients. We're all different types of accountants, different service offerings, right? And the second big aha moment was that people care a lot less about you than you think. They just want you to solve their problem. And that sounds bad, but for me, it was a little bit freeing. That it meant that I didn't have to be the kind of, not stuck up accountant, but the quote unquote accountant with the visor or the suits that, is at a mid-sized or large firm, I could be a more casual accountant. And as long as my clients liked it and I could solve their problems, that was cool.
It's very cool and very freeing, I would imagine.
Yeah. For me, at that point, it was a huge shift. I didn't notice it until like months had passed, years had passed, but like big difference in my business.
What triggered you to shift?
I think I read a quote in a book. I want to say it was this book, Book Yourself Solid. And I remember absolutely nothing else about this book. So whoever wrote it, I'm sorry. I'm sure it was wonderful. But that kind of one takeaway.
Love it. Well, that's a pretty massive takeaway. So that unknown author, I think Book Yourself Solid, I forget his name, but I am familiar with the title. So you got something out of it, but that's huge, because I think that some people can spend their whole life struggling with worrying about what other people think.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm totally free of it. I do still have a little bit of anxiety, like everyone else.
Yeah.
But professionally, I'm a little free of it.
That's great. Well, I mean, when you are the cutest accountant on LinkedIn, you're going to have some sort of relaxed attitude, I would think.
Right. I appreciate the recognition.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's I love that one. Tell us a little bit about that specific. You're the world's, is it the world's cutest
LinkedIn's cutest accountant.
LinkedIn's cutest accountant. Tell us a story of how that came to be.
I had tried posting on LinkedIn a few times. So like for the people that have seen me on LinkedIn now, this is probably my second or third time giving it a shot. And the first few times didn't go so well. And this time when I started posting, I noticed that every accountant was the quote unquote most interesting accountant. And I was just like, that's not possible. Like mathematically, you can only have so many most interesting accountants, even if we're using different measures. There's like 7 max in the world, and we can't have all of them are like from California. So it started as a little bit of a joke, I guess, taking the piss out of being the most interesting accountant or being the most expertist accountant or whatever the typical thing we try and look at ourselves as. And it just kind of stuck. It was just a joke post that went too far. And like now I have stickers with my face on them that say LinkedIn's cutest accountant. And I like it. I'm not going to pretend I don't like it. It's fun.
It is fun. And, it's memorable. I saw that, and, it's different. And I think being different is sometimes hard to do in this world we're living in. And so when you find something that works and you can have fun with it, it really works. And sometimes it takes a while to figure even that out, right? But it's memorable, and it works, and you own it from just talking to you about it, and that's half the battle.
Yeah.
Tell us why you chose to work with marketing agencies.
Yeah, so it came down to 2 reasons. One, they have relatively simple compliance needs, and coming from the tax background, and I'll never really be able to shake the tax side of my business. So I was like, I want a niche where the compliance isn't crazy. And I guess that's in comparison to other kinds of niches. Like, I mean, these are all from a US perspective. I know you're over there in Canada, but from the US perspective, things like breweries, e-com, cannabis businesses, they all have a lot of compliance you have to know. And I just wanted to move more towards consulting. That's what I enjoy more than doing compliance all day. So the first reason was, simpler compliance. And the second is just that I find marketing interesting, and I wanted to be in a niche where I could talk to the owners about what they're doing all day. It's like, could I make a good enough conversation with a lawyer about running a law firm? Sure. But it really wouldn't interest me. And if I'm, diving into a niche for the next, let's say 5 years, 10 years, I would like it to be interesting, I'd like to enjoy my conversations.
It sounds like I think it's refreshing to think that you found something that you enjoy and you find interesting, and you're working with people. I mean, it's just a double whammy. You like the work you're doing,
Yep.
consulting, you like the niche, you like the topic, you can have great conversations. Great conversations lead to great relationships. I mean, it just makes things
Hmm.
go a lot more smoothly. When it comes to marketing, do you find that that's something you excel at in your own business?
I'm going to say yes, right? But I get the feeling if you asked a marketer, they would disagree. Much in the same way, if you asked a business owner if they're good at bookkeeping, they would say yes, but any of us would say no, right? I'm going to say, yeah, I'm an amazing marketer.
Love it. Love it. What do you think? What do you think has worked for you? You're on obviously LinkedIn. That's a
Yeah.
place that you hang out. Does that
Yep.
work for you? What are some of the things that work for you for attracting clients?
So originally, when I first started my practice, it was mainly SEO, and I picked up a lot of local tax prep clients, right? And that did work for me. And if I was just staying in local tax prep, I would have just probably just worried about local SEO and going to networking meetings for the rest of forever. And I'm not trying to like talk down on that. Like you can make a very good business just doing networking meetings, SEO, that sort of thing. But now I predominantly do, posting on LinkedIn and writing my newsletter. And LinkedIn and the newsletter work for me just because I've got the thoughts to always be yapping, right? And I'm not going to say it comes super duper easy because if you're close to me, you know how much I stress about writing my newsletter every single week. But if you don't have the thoughts, it's much harder, right? It becomes a very difficult marketing activity, and it's like I know a lot of people love posting on LinkedIn. At least if you go on LinkedIn, everyone talks about a personal brand, this or that. But it works for me. It doesn't necessarily have to work for you, and that's fine. I guess it comes down to finding what works for you.
I think so, and I think it's also like you have the niche or niche of marketing agencies, and that helps too. Like I think often people try to write to everyone. Like I'm a general bookkeeper, let me write a newsletter. Well, who's it going to be for? I mean, it wouldn't get traction. That wouldn't be very satisfying. I would imagine you have a list of people or a community of people that are marketing agency owners that they're getting value
Mm-hmm.
from reading and consuming your content. You like marketing. You obviously can write. If someone can't write or isn't interested in writing, it sort of comes back to find the things that you really like doing, are good at doing, and stick to those, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, exactly like you said it. Like for me, I will say I enjoy writing, right? I enjoy writing and doing LinkedIn, that whole thing. I hated doing morning networking meetings. But like the reverse is just as true. Some people love doing networking and they're just like really, really good at it. Well, that's your thing, right? But for writing, like you were saying, I feel like you definitely need the niche. Not to be one of those people that's always talking about niche, niche, niche. But when you write, like you said, it's very difficult to just kind of write general bookkeeping because there's so many exceptions, right? Because if you write about general bookkeeping, you have to write for all audiences. And there are huge differences between construction businesses, e-com, and like service businesses, right? And it just makes it so difficult to write. So by having the kind of marketing niche, and even if I'm not like beating everyone over the head with, I work with marketers, when I'm thinking about what I'm writing, I tend to think of marketing agency owners are reading this. I'll write for their fact pattern.
For their fact pattern.
Yeah.
Say a little bit about that. I'm not sure what that is.
So maybe fact pattern is the wrong phrase, but
It
I guess
sounds
when
cool.
it does, right? It sounds legit. So, yeah. So, what I mean by fact pattern is the unique circumstances that niche tends to face, right? So, I don't get super duper granular with it, but I know what services they tend to offer, what kind of clients they go after, what kind of experiences they feel, right? So when I'm writing to the marketing fact pattern, I'm not worrying about inventory, right? Or any sort of weird cost of goods sold kind of issues because they just don't have it, right? But if I was writing for just a general small business audience, Now I got to worry about that. And like, for example, when I talk on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about cash flow, right? And cash flow does change from industry to industry. In marketing agencies, it's a lot about, invoicing and collecting those invoices, profitability, savings, paying the owners. But if I was talking to everyone, well, then I would also have to talk about managing inventory, because that's a very important of cash flow in e-com businesses. But like, because I have that niche and I know what the fact pattern is for marketing agencies, I just try to ignore that edge cases, right? And hopefully my audience gets what I mean, and the other people kind of get I'm not writing for them.
Beautiful. I can really see how that would work, and really is a big piece, I think, of the formula of doing it well and having people pay attention and building an audience. I mean, there's no question that if you tried to go general, it's likely not going to catch. But you've narrowed it. You like talking about it, as I said before, and now you've got this fact pattern. Stick to the key things that are interesting to them, and you've learned what those are, and you stick to those. Let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn and how that would go if someone has a niche or niche, they like talking about it, they can write. Do they just go on a LinkedIn and start posting stuff? What's the formula for someone that's maybe thinking this could be for them?
Yeah. So I would say the very, very first step is to think, is my audience really on LinkedIn? So like, I deal with marketing agencies and they tend to be online and tech savvy. So yeah, they're on LinkedIn. If you're dealing in a niche that tends not to be online, right? So maybe restaurateurs or construction people, right? I'm not trying to say they don't use the internet, but they may not be hanging out on LinkedIn. So first things first, figure out if your audience is truly hanging out there and if it's worth your time investment, right? But once you move on for that, like, we're just going to assume that, yeah, your audience is on LinkedIn, right? It's
a very good point, though. I mean, it's critical. And I think a lot of people, whatever platform it is, it's like, yeah, they're not even here. So it's not gonna feel good when no one pays attention because they're not there.
Yeah, and the potential return on your time might be low.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And there may be better, more time-efficient ways to get clients if your clients don't hang out on LinkedIn. But for me, they do. And I like writing on LinkedIn, so I'm there.
Perfect. And so let's assume, like you said, they're there. What's the next step?
So before jumping into posting and creating content, I think the next step is really figuring out why you're on LinkedIn. Like, yes, of course, it's to get clients, but a little bit of it is to how to get clients. Do you want to be someone that just like posts and people reach out to you and it's totally inbound, you don't send any DMs? Do you want to be someone that's building relationships and starting conversations, right? And do you want to get clients directly from the clients, or do you want to make friends with like referral partners? And that last one's something that's a little bit overlooked on LinkedIn, right? In real life, you go to networking events and yeah, you might get a client directly at the networking event, but a lot of it is really networking and mingling with referral partners. And those people exist online too. They exist on LinkedIn. And while I do get a lot of just like potential new clients reaching out, there is a lot of, financial advisors and business coaches that are like, hey, can you help my client out on this? Right. So assuming your ideal client's on LinkedIn, figuring out what you want to do by being active on the platform, right? And once you kind of figure out what your overall strategy will be and how it kind of fits into the rest of your marketing, I would say the next steps are to build those friendships and build those referral partnerships. And like, when I say friendships, I don't mean that in like a cold calculating business way. I mean that like in a literal build friendships kind of way and make friends. Because when you start posting on LinkedIn, it's just like starting anything else. It's going to suck in the beginning, right? When you're new and you're getting used to it and you're building up steam, it's just like, it sucks. And having friends helps. So it's like, let's say I wanted to start rock climbing tomorrow. I can't rock climb to save my life. I've been like twice in my whole life. If I want to become like a super good rock climber, and I would have to go for a few months, and like you're just there and it sucks because you're getting used to it. You're learning how to rock climb. You're building those muscles. Having those friends that are there with you is what keeps you going in the beginning. And I think that's really the thing that changed from the first time I tried to do LinkedIn and was unsuccessful to this time. The friends that you're kind of like, oh, hey, that's so-and-so. Let me go comment on their post. Nice to see them. That's going to keep you going through the beginning.
Fantastic tip. And I love the idea of nurturing and building relationships with potential referral partners. And again, it comes back to that niche. You can do that in a niche because they're paying attention. If they're working in that same niche, they're paying attention to your content because it's relevant to their niche. So I absolutely love that. So this is work. So we're find out how you're going to make relationships or build relationships with people while you're on LinkedIn. Start with nurturing those friends, make friends, post on their articles and engage with them. What else is there that you've found valuable or useful?
Yeah. So once you kind of are building the relationships and building the friendships and you want to start posting content, there's all sorts of frameworks and everyone will kind of debate the best practices. But for me, there's 3 base rules I have for my posts, right? The first one is, does anyone care? And that's something I feel like a lot of accountants and bookkeepers forget in our content. We are trying to quote unquote create content, and we never stop to think if someone cares, right? Like your average business owner does not care what the difference between a debit and a credit is, or an expense and a payable. And that's just the reality, and we all got to come to terms with it, right? So before you post something, does anyone care about this topic, right? This post. And then after that, I like to remind myself, would I be proud of this post if it flopped? Because it happens. It even happens to me. Sometimes the post doesn't resonate with people, or sometimes it's like an algorithmic, people didn't engage with it enough, so it didn't spread out to the rest of LinkedIn. It could be whatever, but flops do happen. And, for me personally, I don't want the only thing that keeps me posting to be the dopamine, like where I judge how good a post is by how many likes it got. So would you be proud if it flopped is really important to me. That's how I judge whether or not I'm saying something smart, right? I'm adding quote unquote value, or I'm just chasing likes and comments, right? And the last one is, it sounds a little silly, but have fun, right? Accounting doesn't have to be this sort of constantly stuffy thing, right? Yeah, we have to be good at our jobs and put out good work product and have our clients' backs. But that doesn't mean the rest of our lives and every single conversation we have has to be dry. Speak on LinkedIn the same way you speak in real life. So like, I speak very casually on LinkedIn. I curse a lot on LinkedIn, but that's how I am in real life. And when potential new clients get on the phone with me, for an intro call or something, I am exactly who they thought I was going to be.
I love that. That it works. And I think if we can all just be who we are all of the time, for the most part, it's easier. It's more natural, right? And then people get what they expect.
Yeah. And that being who you are thing goes back to what we're talking about in the very beginning of, to a certain extent, no one cares who you are, just how you can help them, right? I thought when I first started my practice that I had to be the stuffy kind of accountant because that's what accountants were, and that one quote I read kind of started the journey to here. And like, it's true. I see in retrospect, at the time, I thought it was crazy, right? I can just be whatever I want. And as long as I can do math, clients are happy. But like, it is true. Being authentic, being yourself, there's someone that wants to do business with someone like you, right? Because at the end of the day, accounting is accounting, right? We're all probably pretty good at accounting. but they don't really come to you because you can do numbers. They come to you because of you. They enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole know, like, and trust comes from people doing business or surrounding themselves with people who are like them. And so the better you are showing that, right? That's like, I mean, I go to some people's websites, there's not even a picture of the person. It's like hard to even find a common ground because it's just a digital page with a bunch of words on it. But you take it beyond that, LinkedIn, you're sharing your thoughts, you're sharing, like, people would really be able to get to know you through the work that you're doing on LinkedIn. And that's powerful. Some are going to be like, this person's really interesting, don't have a need, but then someday it could just switch to like that person that was talking, I want them to work with me because they already know you. And do you find that when people get on a call with you or they reach out to you and is it like, I feel like I know you? Is that sometimes what you hear?
Yes, I get that a lot. And in a weird way, it is surreal, right? Because I'm kind of broadcasting my thoughts and I see who likes the posts and I see who comments and sometimes there's DMs, but some people just read the posts and they don't engage or they don't post their own things. So like we'll get on a call and they'll know me because they've seen all my posts, they've seen my videos, they've read the newsletter, but like I don't know them at all. And it's a little bit surreal. And I'm sure you experience this too in real life. You know, you're on this podcast talking all the time. I'm sure people feel like they know you. Then in real life, you're like, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't know who you are.
That's right. No, absolutely. It makes me blush every time.
Right.
That people go, oh, it's like I feel like I know you. It's like, oh, it is. You're absolutely right. It is surreal. And it's, I think, a great message for our listener in that having people know you're more likely to end up with great clients because they are searching you out and likely very much like you.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to sound like a broken record because I feel like before I picked a niche, before I posted content, before I did all these kind of best practices you hear on all the podcasts, I kind of rolled my eyes at it. Like, to be totally honest, right? I rolled my eyes at it. I was like, that can't possibly happen. But it does, right? Picking a niche, even if you don't go extremely into it, posting content so people get to know you, these things do help. And it's not like you'll pick a niche and you'll post content and then you'll have only A-tier clients starting from tomorrow and you'll never have another worry in your life. It's still life. There's still problems. But it really does help. And clients or potential new clients really do feel like they know me before they meet me. And that's helpful for a few reasons. One, it makes it easier to sell them and be like, buy my stuff. They're more accepting of quotes and premium prices, that sort of thing. But they're also used to you. And I can sometimes be a little rough around the edges and a little bit gruff, right? So it is nice when someone is used to me and is like, yeah, I like this roughness, because that can sometimes be a sticking point.
Absolutely. It's definitely not a broken record here. I think anyone who hasn't embraced it doesn't mean they need to go out and rush and do it, but there is no question it has its merits. And I love the story. You tried this on LinkedIn. You didn't do so well. You came back. You pivoted a bit on it. You figured it out, and that's also, I think, a great message, is that not everything's going to work right away. It might take a couple of shots at it, but that's part of the journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's kind of left out of the conversation sometimes, that the advice is to go do XYZ things. And then when you go do those things and it doesn't work, you're just like, oh, well, this can't work at all. Well, sometimes you just executed it poorly. If we're being honest, like looking back on it, the first time I was on LinkedIn, I executed it poorly. The first time I tried writing a newsletter, the first time I went to networking events, it's not that these things don't work. The blame was partially on me, right? But it was also unrealistic expectations were being set. So I guess no matter what kind of marketing you do, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever works for you, if it doesn't work, that's fine. It's nothing wrong with the advice. It's nothing wrong with you. Just sometimes things don't work.
That's right.
You got to give it another shot.
That's right. And that's so often, like you say, left out of the conversation, is that sometimes it's just testing that needs to happen. Things are you're testing things. And I think that's one of the better pieces of advice that I had heard a couple of years ago, actually, where it's like, you don't know if something's going to work. It worked for Michael. It might not work for you. If you did exactly the same thing that you did, it might not work because there's other factors that you might be able to see. So you keep testing, pivoting, finding the way, and eventually you will find a way or learn a different path. But that's a piece, I think, that's often not talked about. It's like the instant success. I did this, I won, I figured it out quickly. It's often not that way.
Mm-hmm. It's a process. No matter what you do in life, whether it's in business, in personal life, whatever, there's a process. There's an uncomfortable learning portion. Sometimes you have to relearn things. It is what it is,
Absolutely. Michael, this has been absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you on behalf of our listeners for your generosity in coming and sharing this, and some really great tips on just even accepting ourselves for who we are, embracing that, being successful on LinkedIn. Where can people learn more about you? Obviously, we can give you the link to LinkedIn, but is there any other sites or your newsletter? Would be great to hear that.
Yeah. So my name is Michael Eckstein. You can find me on LinkedIn, but that's a hard last name to spell. So if you Google LinkedIn's Cutest accountant, I will come up, right? Or you can go to restingbusinessface.com, join my newsletter. I'm just going to tell you right up front, I'm not writing about earth-shattering new accounting developments, but it's, my thoughts on accounting and finance for small business owners. Some accountants like it, but don't expect me to invent a new type of accrual,
Perfect. I love it. Well, we're going to have those links in the show notes for sure. And this has been absolutely fantastic, Michael. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
It's been our pleasure. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.